Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger. There is some encouraging news to report tonight in the fight to stop the COVID-19 outbreak, both nationally and locally.
And the one question was, have these measures worked? And I think we're seeing the effect of it. As I told you, we're seeing a flattening of our curve early on. We're seeing an earlier peak and a much lower peak, which is exactly what we'd hoped for.
The Yellowstone County Health Officer telling City Council tonight that it appears that hand washing and social distancing is making a difference. New data shows a major drop in projected confirmed cases, hospital impact, and COVID-19 deaths. That projection model being used by the White House Coronavirus Task Force appears to be easing up on potential damage across Montana. A big difference from just last week. Today, that model shows the number of projected deaths drastically dropping from 270 to 22 in the state. The University of Washington says modeling projections change, and with more data collected, it appears that social distancing is working. The model has also scaled back the projected number of hospital beds from 852 to 45 and ICU beds from 129 needed to 8. Here in Montana, the report also shows the peak resource needed for hospitals has been moved from April 26th earlier to April 13th. Well, tonight, Billings City Council heard an update on the COVID-19 crisis, how it's impacting both our health and our economy. Q2's Mitch Legge joins us now with more from the council meeting. Mitch?
Well, Russ, Felton is encouraged by the new University of Washington projections showing that the state of Montana may peak in COVID-19 cases 15 days earlier than expected. Here's a look at the projections for deaths in the state of Montana. Felton said that the flat line you see through the month of April should be an encouraging sign. This is the flattened curve that everyone's been talking about for the past few weeks. While Felton said social distancing orders have kept the numbers low, Billings Mayor Bill Cole encouraged cautious optimism.
Pleasantly optimistic that the very worst case scenarios have not materialized since we spoke almost 3 weeks ago. And I find that to be encouraging and reason for at least cautious optimism. But this is not the time for any of us or our residents to let up on our efforts to contain the virus.
Now, recreation at the Billings Public Parks also came up at the meeting. City officials wanted to reiterate that the grassy open areas of the Billings parks will remain open. However, areas where social distancing cannot be maintained, like playground areas and basketball hoops, will be closed to the public. Russ?
All right, thank you, Mitch. And taking a look at the latest numbers now of COVID-19 cases here. 319 people have officially contracted the illness across Montana. 6 of those patients have died. Now, of those new cases, 7 are from Yellowstone County, 4 women and 3 men. Yellowstone County now sits at 47 cases. Gallatin County, the state's highest tally, now sits at 118 positive tests. 89 of those individuals are under the age of 60. Now, Governor Bullock has still not yet extended the stay-at-home deadline of April 10th, but did say last week that he expects to do so in coming days. Well, despite the improved projections nationwide, President Trump is still warning Americans this could be the worst week yet. Right now, America has seen more than 368,000 cases and nearly 11,000 deaths. New York State, which has seen nearly 3,500 deaths itself, has increased its maximum fine for violating social distancing guidelines from $500 to $1,000. Also today, it was announced that the U.S. Navy ship Comfort will become the temporary hospital for coronavirus patients. That ship is currently in the New York harbor. The plan is for both New York and New Jersey to use it. Also, the positive projections brought some good news on Wall Street as the Dow closed up more than 1,600 points at 22,679. That was a 7.7% increase. Well, tonight we are learning Montanans who don't carry health insurance or who may have lost it when they got laid off could be some of the most vulnerable. So we sent Q2's Andrea Lutz to find out what resources are available if you happen to find yourself in this position.
It seems there may be some heavy barriers for those still working in jobs where they cannot telework. Jobs like the service industry, servers and drivers, cooks, even construction workers. It's these workers that may face the biggest challenge if they do end up getting the coronavirus because they report they have no health insurance. And it's these kinds of jobs that have an increase in the risk of exposure to COVID-19, according to research from the Kaiser Foundation. The study says in 2018, nearly 28 million non-elderly people in the U.S. lacked health insurance.
I think that is the key to this right now. It's like you can't wait until you have an accident with your automobile and then go and get insurance. It doesn't cover it then. People need to go out right now and be covered. Montana Commissioner of Insurance and Securities Matt Rosendale says there are options if you don't have health insurance right now. Don't wait until you get sick. Don't go uncovered. That is really a big thing. The state of Montana offers short duration health plans where you can sign up at any point in the year. Rosendale also says if you recently got laid off, you could be eligible for COBRA benefits through your previous employer, but premiums could be much higher. Health insurance through the federal exchange is still an option because losing your job is a qualified circumstance through the Affordable Care Act. And there is some good news for those who still do have health insurance. Anyone whose physician has recommended that they get tested for COVID-19, that test is free of charge, and all the major health insurers here in the state have waived all the copays and deductibles in association with that testing. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act was signed into law in March, which may ensure more uninsured can access free testing. However, the legislation doesn't necessarily address coverage of treatment if you do get COVID-19 and don't have health insurance. Whether you're going to have a conversation with your landlord or whether you're going to have a conversation with your insurance agent, as soon as you see that you're going to have difficulties in making those payments to any party, contact them immediately, because we are finding that everyone is making provisions and trying to work together so that we all can get through this very, very difficult circumstance. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
And Andrea says it's unclear if Congress could back additional programs to cover those without health care. Well, for people without a home or a place to isolate, the process of waiting on COVID-19 test results can be a major challenge. Yellowstone County is now ready for those who don't have a place to go. Yellowstone County disaster and health officials have been working to turn one half of the Montana Pavilion at Metro Park into an isolation and quarantine space. If people facing homelessness or domestic violence are waiting on COVID-19 testing results, they're taken to the pavilion to wait out the testing process in isolation. The facility is divided by curtains into 10 feet by 10 feet squares and is currently set up to hold between 30 and 50 people. At the isolation site, people will be able to use the restroom, take a shower, get a hot meal with 24/7 security being provided by Metro Park. The facility is scheduled to be operational by Wednesday at noon.
For the homeless people who don't have a place to be sheltered when they get released from the hospital. So we're providing them a place to come to be isolated and quarantined. So they're either awaiting the results of a test or have gotten the results of a COVID-19 test.
Neil says that while the facility will be ready for service at noon on Wednesday, he hopes there won't be anyone that needs to use it. He says the isolation site will be staffed by organizations in the Continuum of Care Coalition. That's a group of 25 local organizations already working with the homeless in the Billings area. There's also a donation site for personal protective equipment for our local healthcare workers. N95 respirators, surgical masks, and face shields are all needed, as well as disinfectants like Lysol wipes and hand sanitizers. So if you have any extra items, they are being collected at the Sandstone building on the Metro Park campus. To set up a donation time, you can call 406-208-8154. You may have heard of that tiger from the Bronx Zoo that tested positive for COVID-19, and that's raising some concerns about the safety of domestic pets. Now, this is the first case in the U.S. of an animal contracting coronavirus, and as of now, it's believed that that tiger came down with the virus through a handler. The big question is whether or not an animal can spread COVID-19 to humans or other animals. We spoke with local veterinarian Edie Best, and she tells us more information is needed before we can draw any conclusions.
While we know that a few animals have tested positive that have lived with or been exposed to a human infected with COVID, there is no evidence currently that pets can transmit back to people, or that pets are necessarily getting sick with the disease.
Well, Best recommends if you've been diagnosed or are feeling symptoms of COVID-19, try to distance yourself from your pet as much as possible until more information is available. All right, meteorologist Ed McIntosh joining us now. And Ed, we all enjoyed today's nice warm weather, but that could be changing in a big way by Easter weekend. Huh?
That's right. Yeah, we've still got some more along the way, but I want to start the clock here at about Wednesday afternoon, and we're still going to be under the influence of a little cooler air by then. Thursday, most of Friday, we see a good warm up, but check out Friday evening. We're starting to look areas of rain and snow showers moving in and a decent chance of snow to follow. Now, we don't expect that whole broad area to be blanketed with snow, but it certainly shows a strong indication that we could be picking up some accumulations of rain and snow during that period. So it does look like things will get cooler by the weekend, and we're going to pick up at least rain and snow showers. How much? We're yet to be determined. We're going to talk more about that with the forecast details coming up in a little bit.
Thanks, Ed. Construction work on the Keystone XL pipeline is underway across the U.S.-Canadian border north of Malta. TC Energy, the company behind the Keystone project, tells MTN News that construction work started over the weekend on the 1.4-mile U.S.-Canadian border crossing. The company spokesperson, Sarah Rayburn, couldn't provide any further details. The Keystone XL was given new life last week when the government of Alberta invested $1.1 billion into that project to fund it through the end of the year. Meanwhile, the company's presidential permit is the subject of a hearing next week before U.S. District Judge Brian Morris in Great Falls. A coalition of environmental groups claimed that the Army Corps of Engineers ignored two major U.S. laws when it approved the project's permit last spring. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, the question of what is and is not an essential business has been front and center for the last week, and one of the most debated golf courses will tell you why you are still able to hit the links. And in sports, we'll tell you what the game plan is for fall sports when it comes to college athletics.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.